Hello, and a very warm welcome back to AFC Newsday. Instant reaction, hot off the press. Arsenal losing 1-0 to Porto in the Champions League. Matt's here. Matt, we're going to get it cracking. Shout out to everyone that's tuned in. Man, that was tough. That was tough, Matt, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the reason I kind of didn't want to get too ahead of things or be too optimistic for the Champions League is I think it's such an unknown quantity and it's almost a competition. Obviously, in general, we've not been good in Champions League, like as a club at all, and it's up to us to change those narratives. But at the end of the day, it's an unknown quantity. So I'll feel optimistic that we can beat anyone, but at the same time, I don't want to make comments about how far we can go in the Champions League until I see us navigate past Porto, because it's about being able to do it against a side who are master of the dark arts, who are a team who are very tactically well set up and, know how to play against us, if you will, or well set up against us. And it's about getting over the line and doing it professionally against a team who you expect to beat at the end of the day. That's an underrated aspect. And obviously, we've not had a very fun time around the 16s, as I'm sure everyone will tell you. But pretty heartbreaking end to that. And we've got quite a lot to do at the Emirates now.
Mate, it's a screamer as well. It's a lovely finish. And, Ali McCoy was saying, could David Raya do better? Man, come on, it's just a good finish. And man, I tweeted it, but it's always screamers in Europe against Arsenal in knockout competition. It's ridiculous the way that they've done that. Everyone that's tuned in, this is AFC Newsday. If you're new here, my name's Dan, this is Matt, and we do streams about Arsenal all the time, so please do subscribe, follow us if you want to stick around for more stuff. But Matt, how are you feeling going into this game? What were you expecting when you first saw the team? Were you encouraged by that? The same team that played last time out against, if you can remind me, I can't remember who Arsenal played last time out. It was unchanged. The Burnley game, sorry, the Burnley game. But man, did you feel any type of way about the team when it came out?
I mean, I kind of expected it to be unchanged. Part of me was like, okay, I understand it. Part of me was like, I probably would have gone for Jorginho. Well, what's good to tell you, by the way, in the chat. Appreciate you tuning in. It's hard for me to say. As I say, with this competition, I found it very hard to predict. Naturally, I said we'd comfortably win the game, but at the same time, as I say, it's quite an unknown quantity. It's quite a huge factor. This is our first round of 16 tie away from home with this group of players. I think you could tell from the start of it, we played quite nervy. We built our way into the game nicely, controlled the game, but we didn't do more than that. It was just more staying controlled without any kind of anything about us. And when it got to that second stage, it was almost like Porto were more than happy for us to keep the ball. But the second it got to a certain point, they clog up the middle completely and did a brilliant job taking specifically Andrew Trossard was completely, just couldn't get in the game, unfortunately.
He wasn't in the game at all, was he? He was not anywhere near the game. And they just had a shot. That's all it came down to. They had a really good shot.
That's a funny comment, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen it in the chat.
Work at Subway, not a bigger sub. I mean, I do feel like this is the thing though, because he brought on Jorginho, which I think was the right change. Probably should have happened a little bit sooner. But even Jorginho came on and was misplacing passes. I thought Gabriel Martinelli was quite poor tonight. Really didn't, get anything going. The attack in general. It just, I don't know if if they were struggling with the surface, what it was in particular, but man, it's so difficult. I'm just left puzzled in some ways after that game because, I mean, obviously it's a big European round of 16 game. You'd hope the players would be up for it. I know it's Porto, not exactly the biggest draw, but man, you'd hope that Arsenal would be up for it, but just really didn't seem to get it going. I mean, if we're kind of leveling it out a bit, I'm still confident that Arsenal can score more than one goal against Porto at home in the reversed tie which comes up. And I'm still confident Arsenal can, go through in this fixture. But you expected more from the attack, I think, today, didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, I agree. I mean, big credit to Porto. I don't want to be, like salty
Credit
about
to Porto. The way
it.
they were screaming and shouting, we can't give them credit.
No,
They were going
credit
down at the.
for no, credit for something else. Credit for
Go on.
Porto for how well organised they were and how well they clogged the middle.
Okay.
Credit to the referee for allowing them to execute their tactics to 100%. Honestly, I'm not trying to use this as an excuse or whatever because we weren't at our normal level. I thought we improved in the second half. I thought we had moments where we looked, we were creating a few decent attacks. I thought the Raya ball to Martinelli was a nice attack where Havertz left it, dummied it, and took away his man, so Martinelli was isolated. But generally speaking, it is very, very, very hard to
Mm.
control a football game or sustain pressure when the referee whoop, whoop. Well, that's
Yeah.
not a whistle impression. I can't do a whistle, but every 2 seconds is blowing the whistle. It's honestly, and it does your nut in as a fan because it's not football. And I don't want to be the salty person here because that is kind of what Champions League knockouts are to an extent. And that is what teams like Porto will bring you. You know,
Yeah.
that dark art side of the things, they're a very experienced side. And to be fair, we should expect it. But at the same time, it's so hard to sustain pressure or create any kind of attacks when going down, going down, going down, staying down, trying to get players booked, etc., etc. It's a draining watch for a fan, and then it's a kick in the teeth when they go and score that lovely goal, which is a lovely goal. But I also do think Raya is very far off his line. Not saying he should have saved it, but
Yeah.
he's very far off his line. So
I mean, just looking through the lineups and Arsenal's bench they had today, they had Jorginho, Ramsdale, Smith Rowe, and Ketia, Cedric Vieira, Reece Nelson, El Neni, Hine, Wanyeri, Sweet, and Heaven. Man, Emil Smith Rowe. I mean, Jorginho was the only sub made in the game for Arsenal. You've got someone like Emil Smith Rowe and Eddie Nketiah who didn't even get a minute. Do you think maybe there's an element of Mikel Arteta just going, look, Arsenal just need to get through this. Like, we just need to get through this game. 0-0, take it back to the Emirates. We'll steamroll them at home. That kind of thing. Do you think it's just an element of, get the 0-0 and get out of here? In some respects, maybe rather than going for it.
I think it's tough to really say because in terms of the controlling type of players you'd want to bring on, Jorginho
Mm,
was the only one. Smith Rowe could have been a dynamic change. You bring someone who can get you pace up the pitch, can get you closer to the goal, to pushing Porto further back and hopefully sustaining. But past that, you've got obviously a bunch of academy graduates, great opportunities for Heaven, Wanyeri, and Sweet. But obviously they're not going to come on. It's just a
no.
great experience for them. El Neni, you're not exactly going to bring on in terms of calming things down, calming influence, but he's not. There's no point. So
Yeah.
past that, you're not going to
And
bring on
Cedric doesn't come on unless Arsenal are more than 5 goals up. So I mean, there you go.
Like,
um,
when you think about it, just quickly, the players who could have played a big part in terms of the composure, as much as fans want to get onto them, is Zinchenko and Jesus. Those are kind of the two guys who are very
yeah.
much, you know. And at the end
Mm.
of the day, you have a bunch of unreliable players who aren't there when you need them quite a lot in tough away grounds. It makes things harder. So
Yeah, yeah, and I mean to clear it up completely, we're not losing our heads. There's no overreaction here at all. It's just frustrating, really, isn't it? You'd hope. I was excited for this game. I'm sure you were too, Matt. And
very
we're hoping that Arsenal could get a few goals in the knockouts away from home against a decent team, which have got some well-respected players. But man, it's just frustrating to watch. It's such a tough watch, like you said, with the referee blowing up every 10 seconds. Well, not 10 seconds, but referee blowing up every couple of minutes, every few minutes. There was like a foul, and it was just hard to get anything going. And Arsenal had no shots on target from what I saw in that game. I can't remember a fairly decent, you know, chance really, apart from just from set pieces. Set pieces, have been a really good weapon for Arsenal this season, but man, it was not good enough at all from Arsenal today. Shout out to Ollie, he's tuned in. He said the temperament of this side really showed. So poor from them all. They've given us so much to do, so much. I mean, I agree, but at the same time, I think as well. I'm confident Arsenal can get a few goals, I think, against Porto in the return leg. But there again, I was confident Arsenal could score a few today. So I mean, they've given themselves a job to do, but then you've got to think that Arsenal can get there. Rose said the game reminds him of Fulham away this season.
I
Arsenal had
wouldn't say that.
nothing.
I thought Fulham
I don't
away
think it was. Yeah.
completely like we couldn't control the game even. Porto, I
Mm,
think we had a lot of the ball. It maybe
yeah.
more reminded me of earlier games this season where we win 1-0 or win 2-0, maybe like a Brentford away type of game. Not I wouldn't say Fulham because I think Fulham was a game where we had no control whatsoever. We were allowing them to have transitions and we looked vulnerable defensively, which I wouldn't exactly say we were vulnerable tonight. We had one or two moments where I thought the Galeno shot should have been a goal and so should the rebound. And I thought
Mm.
Saliba watched a bit there. I don't think he had a great game. But
Oh man,
also
yeah. How that wasn't how that's not 2-0, by the way. That chance they had was ridiculous. Outrageous. He hits the post and then I was just sat there like, waiting for the net to
count your
bulge,
lucky
and it
shot.
just, oh man. It was
You
it
know what
was
it is
how,
though? I think not from like a going too far ahead perspective, but I also kind of felt obviously, going short term, getting past Porto, etc. But that first 40 minutes kind of maybe said to me we're not quite or the game in general maybe said to me we're not quite ready to, you know, go incredibly far in the Champions League because it's not an on paper game a lot of the time. And
mm.
although we're technically suited to the competition, it's a very new ball game for us, and obviously a club which has, not got a great reputation in Europe. But yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, not at all, man, not at all. Just looking through some of the stats. Arsenal committed a record number of fouls.
What
It
a
was
dirty game.
it really was. I'm just trying to find the James Benge put out a really good tweet on the stats of,
29.
of the game.
Off the top of my head, it was 29,065 minutes, and the record in a Champions League game this season is 34 in the whole 90 minutes. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
yeah. So
oh,
yeah, the record in the Champions League this season was 34, and in the end there was 36 altogether, which is ridiculous. Arsenal had 10 corners. Arsenal had 10 corners to Porto's one. Porto had 2 shots on target. Arsenal had none, no shots on target, which is a bit of a worry. But they did have 7 shots overall, and Porto had 8 shots. And then possession was, Arsenal had decent possession. I'd say, the first half they were majority had the ball most of the time. They had 65% overall, and Porto had 35%. Man, it's a tough one. Let us know. We're going to stick on for a little bit more. So if you are watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, please do comment down below your thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Really appreciate any support over there. Yeah, give a little
I
touchdown.
did that delayed there. I sometimes do. I sometimes.
Yeah, Raul said blaming the ref makes sense, but not having a shot on target is a disgrace. It is a disgrace.
Yeah, it's not.
It's tough. You really would expect Arsenal to have shots on target at least. Didn't test the keeper at all. Man, really really tough.
2 years. Wow. Keshav just put TNT post. It's the first time in 2 years we haven't had a shot on target.
Wow.
That's quite alarming, but we've also not played a Champions League knockout tie for however many years. So as I say, it's
Mm.
just an unknown quantity.
It is. It is. It is. Matt, any more points that you wanted to make at all on the game or anything like that?
Yeah,
Anything else kind of sticking out to you?
I think it's a difficult one to say because football's a funny old game. I think
Yeah.
if we'd ended that 0-0, people wouldn't have been happy, don't get me wrong. It would have been like, oh, we didn't play that great. The referee disrupted a lot. We didn't create anything. Porto should have scored with that Galeno shot, but we also relatively limited them. Gabriel had a good game. Rice managed the game really well considering the booking.
Yeah.
Um, David Raya was very proactive most of the game. Obviously, the long shot, I don't know, people can say what they want. Kivior was pretty good, but it's tough. It's kind of forcing him in a bit. White, I thought was good. And then, yeah, I thought Havertz was a bit of a nuisance and was pretty good, but his passing was a bit off. Martinelli had a poor game. Saka couldn't, they did really well masking that our right hand side. But 0-0, it's like, okay, from an away side perspective of a Champions League tie, that's not too bad. You take a 0-0 back to the Emirates, you trust you can beat them at home. But when you have a 1-0, it just makes the alarm bells go up a tiny bit. And it almost reminds me of how I feel going into this game. That it's just I've said an unknown quantity about 10 times, but I'm going to say it an 11th time. I think it's just unknown because all it takes is one mistake or one hiccup, and Porto go 2-0 up, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, mentally, for a team who's not played a Champions League knockout tournament, knockout tie for however many years, and also not to go at the club or anything, but also haven't exactly blown the Europa League away. It's
Mm.
it's not the best look in the world, and I don't think we've won a home tie at the Emirates under Mikel Arteta. So it's up to us to prove another thing wrong. Up to us to show we have the composure, the quality, and just the general know-how for a young squad to get past that this dreaded round of 16 at the end of the day.
Definitely. We'll talk about what's to come for Arsenal in a second. I just did want to address that there's a few people on Twitter, with the greatest of respect to them, they're chatting a bit of rubbish, saying, Mikel Arteta knockout stages in Europe, this is going to hold the club back. And with the greatest of respect, I don't agree with that at all. I think it would be a worry if Arsenal played the reverse fixture and didn't, had a similar performance and didn't turn it up. But I don't think it's anything that should be worrying, or you can really blame the manager on that, to the point of that, in my opinion.
Twitter's very
Um,
flippant. I mean, one week it's he's the best manager ever. Next week
yeah,
it's I completely understand when opinions can change. That's fine.
mm,
But when it's literally going from like, oh, we're going to absolutely smoke Porto, and then it's like, oh, Arteta, all this stuff. It's like just a bit of common sense, bit of understanding that you've also got to prove yourself on this stage. I made a tweet. I mean, just to bring it up as well, Diogo Costa, the Porto keeper, very talented player. He said basically before the game that we'll try go at Arsenal's weaknesses, and if Arsenal are one of the favourites for the competition, they need to show it. And
mm.
completely right. It's up to
Oh
us to
yeah,
show
fair play.
why we're one of the best in that aspect. And it's up to us now that we've had a tough away leg. We've lost 1-0. It is what it is. We've got a leg to rectify it, and it's up to us to do so.
Yeah, definitely. And Hugo Enzo makes a good point. I think he says he feels like it would have been a good game for Gabriel Jesus. But I mean, regardless, Arsenal shouldn't be bottling it with the players they've got. And I mean, I think Jesus would have made a big difference tonight. Trossard was really he was struggling at times up there on his own, really did not get involved at all. Had a nice chance, I can remember, from the corner, which Declan Rice
Probably our
played
best chance, actually. That and
probably
Gabriel's
was the
header.
best chance for Arsenal. But Gabriel Jesus would have offered something different, and Arsenal didn't really have that option. And what they needed, that spark, that kind of ability to beat a man and drive at the opposition defence. And Arsenal didn't really have that tonight. With Martinelli, I thought was quite poor, and the game was pretty stop start. So, man, hopefully it's not the same referee for the other tie. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so let's talk about Arsenal's schedule coming up.
Just a quick
Newcastle.
shout out, by the
Go
way,
on,
to
go on, go on, go on,
Varela.
go on, go on.
Just a very quick shout out to Varela because it always felt like we looked like we're getting in behind. I thought we were a bit too aggressive sometimes in that second half, but it looked like we were getting in behind, and Varela would always be there to snuff out. One moment Martinelli did Pepe, and then Varela does brilliantly. They had that extra man, and they were very good with that, and he was brilliant. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely, mate. No, I think fair play to Porto. They really got under Arsenal's skin. They got under my skin a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But let's talk about Arsenal's schedule. Newcastle at the Emirates on Saturday. Big game. A Newcastle side that haven't been the force that they were at the start of the season. But Arsenal going with a little bit of revenge on the minds when you come back to thinking about that game at St James's Park earlier in the season. Bruno G having a bit of an interesting game where he decided to just take it upon himself to elbow
Forgot what
Jorginho
sport
in
it
the
was.
head and say again.
Forgot what sport it was.
Yeah, forgot what sport it was. Yeah, but Arsenal, I'm sure will. There'll be a little added bit of spice to this game on Saturday. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff. We'll get your thoughts on that one just in a second, Matt. But then after that, there's a bit of a gap between now and the next leg against Porto because you've got Sheffield United away at Bramall Lane after the Newcastle game. Then the weekend after that, you've got Brentford at home on the Saturday. That Sheffield United game's a Monday night kickoff, by the way. So that'll be interesting, away at Bramall Lane. And then you've got Brentford at home, Saturday, March the 9th. That's a 5:30 kickoff. And then you've got Porto at the Emirates, 8 o'clock, March the 12th. I'm hoping to be there if I can get tickets, but, we'll wait and see. But yeah, Matt, just a few thoughts on the Newcastle game this Saturday. You confident Arsenal can get the job done?
Yes, but it's kind of like what I said at the end before we played Burnley. It's almost, or I think it was after actually. Did we do? I can't remember. I think it was after. But either way, uh, it's just that kind of humbling feeling that it can all come crashing down very easily,
Yeah,
and all the hard work almost becomes void with one bad result. And I hate to be doom and gloom or pessimistic like that, but that's the game we're dealing with. You know, Liverpool having so many players out and managing to get the job done against Luton, City managing to win against Brentford at home. You know, all these games coming thick and fast. And it's a three-way title race, and the aim of the game is consistency. And until we got to play City, obviously at the Etihad, which will be decisive, they've got to go to Anfield, which will
woo,
be decisive. But we've we've just got to be consistent and win every game and not slip up when you easily can. And in terms of Newcastle themselves, I can't remember where I saw it, but Joe Willock's back in training, as is Alexander Isak. Isak particularly massive bonus for them if he does play. Gives them that outlet, gives them that central point, and then Gordon can be
absolutely.
an outlet for them, which is great for them. Um, a team not to be underestimated, in my opinion. They've not had a great season, and they've not done brilliant things. They've not really kicked on from that Champions League position they got last season. Obviously, a few things haven't really gone their way with injuries. Nick Pope, obviously the whole Tonali thing, and Isaac being out, etc., etc. Callum Wilson, but they pose a tough preposition, just like any other side does. They have good firepower on the counter with Anthony Gordon and Isaac if he does play, and
Mm.
it's up to us to put things right against Newcastle. We didn't beat them at home last time, and we didn't beat them away last time. So it's up to us to Sunday night under the lights, put things right, bounce back from a minor setback. Hopefully, just a minor setback against Porto, and that's all you can do.
Minor setback, major comeback. It's been said. You
Love
hoping to
that.
be there, Matt?
Hopefully, I haven't really looked at the ticket situation. Um, hopefully, what about
Do you know
yourself?
what? It's interesting. I mean, let's touch on. We won't go into too much, but it's interesting what's going on with tickets at the moment. Obviously, Arsenal announced that price increase, and you now can't access the ticket exchange unless you've applied for the ballot, which I think is fair enough in some ways. But it limits your chances if you're not on your
It's a
toes and you don't
bit,
apply for the ballot.
but it's a bit stupid at the same time. Like you shouldn't have to almost fill out a form to have a chance of having an Arsenal game.
Yes, but at the
It's not
same time,
form, but
I at the same time, my argument is, if you apply for the ballot and you get the ticket exchange, you're more likely to get a ticket on the exchange than previously when it was just like a free for all.
true, true.
Mm.
Basically, snooze
So
you lose.
basically, yeah, if you snooze, you lose, and I just need to get prepared and try and enter ballots. But we move.
I'm just gonna
Um,
do a shameless plug, by the way. If
go
anyone
on,
wants to fill out my form for my dissertation on ticket touting, then that's very much appreciated. It's on my profile somewhere.
do
Um,
it. I've done it already, so if I can do it, you can do it. Arsenal, the Newcastle game, and I'd like to think for that reverse game against Porto, you could potentially have the likes of Tomiyasu back. I mean, we don't really know what Tomiyasu's situation is, but Tomiyasu back,
I'm not
Thomas.
I'm not really having it, to be honest with him, because like I'm not I'm not trying to jump on players or anything like that, but I just can't have it that a player is playing week in, week out in the Asian Cup after coming back from an injury, played what, 30 minutes or 40 minutes against Fulham, went to um went to the Asian Cup, played 3, 4 games, stayed on till like the 97th minute, and all of a sudden comes back to London and he's nowhere to be seen for 3 weeks.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe he was given some time off by the club. I mean,
If it's that, then I'd
I
rather
don't
that was
know.
communicated.
We
But
don't know. We don't know. We'll wait and see. It's tough to speculate on these things, but I'm sure I'd like to think for that Arsenal Porto game at the Emirates, and hopefully maybe the Sheffield United and Brentford games, you've got the likes of Tomiyasu, Thomas Partey, Fabio Vieira,
Vieira
and
was
who
back
knows?
today,
He was on
which
the
is a big
bench, yeah,
bonus.
and who knows? Maybe some point around the corner we might see Yuri and Timber back in Arsenal colours. We will wait and see, and we look forward to that day. That'll be a great day whenever it happens. Uh,
Absolutely.
Shout out to the guys that are still watching. If you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, big thank you to you. Please do follow us, subscribe. We really do appreciate the support, and we're looking to continue with the YouTube stuff. So, man, any support we really do appreciate. Arsenal lost to Porto, but it's not all doom and gloom. There's some big games coming up, and I'm confident they can do it in the return leg. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Any final words, Matt?
Just enjoy the rest of your evenings. Don't go into meltdown mode,
Evenings,
and
evenings.
put things
It's a
well.
Wednesday. It's 10:30, Matt. People go to sleep at this time. I know you stay up
Well,
until the
oi,
early
oi,
hours.
oi! I've sorted out my sleeping pattern. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. No, I've actually sorted that, which I'm very happy with.
Enjoy the rest.
But yeah.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and good night.